Ooh, the government is lying to us. Shut up, Mitch. Tell us something we don't know. Well, that requires us to go back a little bit in history, where the meeting at Jekyll Island held in 1911 discussed the first Federal Reserve in America. In 1912, we have all those opposed to said Federal Reserve boarding the Titanic, where J.P. Morgan, the one who funded the building of said Titanic, neglected to board his ship on its maiden voyage. One short year later, we have the first Federal Reserve. 16 years after, in 1929, we have the Wall Street crash. In between then and 1933, we have Edward Mandell House, the man who famously came up with the idea of registration, where every man, woman's and child's birth certificate was used to hypothecate the wealth and equity that they would generate throughout their lifetime. What this essentially did was allow fiat currency to be backed by your labour. It made every man, woman and child a ward of the state, chattel if you will, where your name was turned into a corporation. We fast forward a little bit to 1960s, where we have Bob Menzies. This slick motherfucker changed the Queen's Letters Patent, which essentially turned our de jure Governor-General into a de facto Governor-General. What this did was get him to stop working from we the people, the Commonwealth, to a bought and paid for employee to carry out the will of the Parliament. This was only 1 year after we have Australia's first Federal Reserve, if you will, known to us as the Reserve Bank of Australia. Fast forward to 1966 and we have our man Harold Holt. We made it 7 long years after this central bank in Australia before we went bankrupt. Essentially what this forced Mr. Holt to do was go begging the US banks for more fiat currency. And they agreed on 2 conditions. One would be that he changes the pounds, shillings and pence to US dollars, and we were allowed to call them AUD. 2, we were to send our young men and women to Vietnam to go fight in the US war. We go forward to the 1972-73 Duumvirate period made famous by Gough Whitlam, where he and one other man made over 40 new acts and legislations during the Christmas break while everyone in Parliament was off. What they essentially did was take all references to the Queen of England out of the Royal Styles and Titles Act. When they took the Queen of England out of the Royal Styles and Titles Act, they essentially replaced her with the Queen of Australia. I've never met her. They also removed the lion and the unicorn and changed it with the emu and the kangaroo. All of this was done without a referendum, making it null and void. Then in 1986, we have Bob Hawke, who came along and finished the job. This man implemented the Australia Act, giving powers to state governments, something that went against our constitution. I can go on and on and on about how these private foreign entities are personating our Commonwealth government. But honestly, no amount of information or no amount of history is going to convince those who don't want to know what is to be true or not. That is something only you can do by questioning the narratives that you've been forced to conform with your whole life. This page, my information, is not to change anyone's worldview, to change your mind, or to believe this or that. This information is there for those who are already seeking. So, if you come across this and it doesn't agree with your view of reality, scroll on, because it's not for you, and nor should anyone convince you to think otherwise. However, if you're questioning, there are answers and there are receipts to prove it.